Hello, my name is Charles Hughes, and I'm the proud member of Team One. And on today's Sunday, March 3rd, I'll be briefly discussing and introducing a very important Senate bill that's still in the process of trying to be pushed forward. This Senate bill is Senate Bill 766, and it's a title protector for social workers. Also, this bill is getting 100% support from the National Association of Social Workers. This bill initially was authored by Dr. Susan Talamantes Eggman, who also happens to be a licensed social worker. She introduced this bill to the California legislative session on February 17th, 2023. This bill would prohibit an individual from representing themselves as a social worker unless they possess certain qualifications. Currently, clinical social workers who are licensed by the state of California are protected by Clinical Social Worker Practice Act. This act it's an act that protects current social workers from fraud or from anyone trying to represent themselves as a clinical social worker. And if someone is not a licensed social worker currently, that person can be prosecuted up to a year in jail or receive also receive $1,000 fine. The Senate Bill 766 also, it's a bill that would make it illegal for someone to practice self-representation as a social worker unless they meet specific educational requirements. And again, those requirements would be receiving a master's in social work and then becoming licensed. So unless they have that in place, they can be in violation of the current act, again, which is Clinical Social Work Practice Act. One more point I want to bring up was that this bill currently, let's say someone works for a nonprofit and they're trying to represent themselves as a social worker and they're not licensed. What they're doing to the public, to people who are homeless or people who really need the help, they are doing them a disservice by preventing fraud. And they're also doing a disservice to the Social Work Association as well. Lastly, what I wanted to say was the SB 766 bill, Senate Bill 766, it promotes professional integrity and title protection legislation, enhances the social work profession's credibility by establishing rigorous educational, ethical, and training standards among practitioners.
Okay. My name is Ashley Garcia, and I'm doing the historical, political, and economic context of the bill. So there's no law currently that states that you have to have a certain type of certification to hold the title of social worker. But regardless of the degree that you have in either your undergraduate or your graduate degree, there's something that's called Common Core 3.5, which is a curriculum that's mandated to ensure that all child welfare social workers receive the proper training for field work. So that was something that they kind of used to alleviate the issue of not having a degree in social work. And it focuses on integrated core practice model. That way it helps them develop like new skills and knowledge in the social work field and actually gets them the hands-on training that they need. So some of the political factors for SB 766 is that anybody can essentially call themselves a social worker without having a degree in social work, which can cause a lot of confusion and potential harm to the communities and the clients that we serve as social workers. From a political standpoint, the passing of the bill would affect the employment laws. So it would affect the hiring process in that the demand for social workers right now is so high just because the turnover rate is so high in social work. And so it would potentially cause an issue with the hiring process just if everybody did have to have a degree in social work. But by hiring based on educational background, social workers would be grounded in social work practice, research, values, and ethics, and they'd study in accredited schools of social work. So some of the economical factors would be so social workers would be getting field-based training, and it could ultimately reduce the concerns regarding social worker requirements. Undergraduate and graduate degrees in social work would require extensive hands-on training um, in the field and would require a certain amount of internship hours. The purpose is to provide the ethical service training to adequately address the needs of the populations that we serve. In addition, field training hours on trauma-informed practice, which cannot be practiced or taught in any other degrees other than social work. And then also the bill promotes professional integrity and also puts trust in the public that social workers have the right education and training to address the needs of the family and the child welfare system. So the current stakeholders right now are the Board of Behavioral Sciences and the National Association of Social Work and the California chapter. So currently the stakeholder, as Charles had previously mentioned, that the NASW is 100% for the bill. So the NASW is the largest membership of organization of professional social workers in the world. It is also the governing body of the association and are the ones responsible for settling policy and overseeing the organization's operations. It's also responsible for upholding the code of ethics. And the code of ethics helps social workers, guides them in making ethical decisions, values, principles, basically in the decision-making process as a social worker. So those that are in support of the bill are the National Association of Social Workers, California Chapter Bay Area Association of Black Social Workers, California Association of School Social Workers, Lincoln Families, Society for Social Worker Leaders in Healthcare, and 23 Strong. Those that are not in support of the bill are the County Welfare Directors Association of California, California Association of Marriage and Therapists, and the California Association for Licensed Professional Clinical Counselors.
Hi, my name is Patricia Nunez, and I'm covering Section 3 major and minor provisions. So SB 766 really aims to regulate the use of social work, and much has been covered by Ashley and Charles already. And so they want to regulate the title of social worker for individuals who have obtained their degrees from an accredited social work school. So this includes employees of agents of governmental entities, academic institutions, nonprofit, and charitable institutions, among others. This effort is focused on enhancing the professional standards and integrity of the social work field in California, and specifically it seeks to prohibit any person from claiming the title of social worker without holding a degree in social work, right? In terms of legislative action, the change would be implemented through legislative measures and mandate specific academic qualifications to legally use the word social worker as a title. The penalties and misrepresentations have already been talked about, so I won't go over that again. But there would be violations that would be deemed as unfair business practices and classified as a misdemeanor if somebody were to use the social work title. And this approach really underscores the seriousness of accurately representing one's professional qualifications. Enforcement and oversight. Ashley already kind of covered this as well. The Board of Behavioral Sciences will be responsible for enforcement and oversight of these regulations, ensuring that the standards are consistently met and maintained across the profession. And in terms of vulnerable populations or groups that this is specifically geared towards, the proposal represents a significant step towards ensuring that social work service in California are provided by individuals with the necessary training and education, thereby promoting the welfare and protection of the community. By establishing a clear criterion for who can claim the title of social worker, SB 766 really safeguards the welfare of vulnerable populations, children, the elderly, and those facing social and economic challenges. It not only protects vulnerable populations by ensuring they receive services from appropriately trained professionals, but also bolsters the credibility and public trust in the social work profession, which is oftentimes lacking because there's not always trust in what we do, right? And then what are the anticipated economic effects of the policy as a whole? Ashley covered a lot of this, so I won't go into it again. But it is earmarked for a projected price of $117,000 for the fiscal year of 24-25, and ongoing costs would be $109,000 thereafter. They can't be absorbed at this time, but the way that it's outlined, the benefits would outweigh the costs. Because improved service quality, enhanced trust, and the protection of vulnerable populations present a really compelling case for SB 766. That's all.
Hi, my name is Bianca Sanchez, so I'll be discussing section 4. So this section covers implicit ideological values that the Senate Bill 766 upholds. So the question is, does the bill put forward conservative, liberal, or radical values? I believe that the Senate bill upholds liberal ideological values. But first off, what are liberal values? So these values tend to emphasize the importance of equality, individuals' rights and freedoms, social justice, government intervention and regulations, diversity, and inclusivity. So why does the bill uphold liberal values? So one major indication that I saw through the language of the bill is that it embodies liberal values due to the bill seeking government action to regulate the social worker title. So if we look back to the liberal values, individuals believe in government intervention and regulations like on certain policies that help improve society, especially policies that can benefit marginalized and disadvantaged communities. So this is what this bill is seeking, is the government action and regulation on the social worker title to protect the public. And then another indicator is that the bill places emphasis on the public's welfare. So the objective of the bill is to protect the title of social workers, to protect the public from being misled, and to ensure that the public can trust the social work profession. And then another indicator that this may perhaps uphold liberal values is the author of the bill. So the author is Senator Susan Talamantes Eggman. She's part of the Democratic Party. She supports policies that aim to improve the well-being of disadvantaged individuals and communities, and she has extensive experience in public welfare. She also has her MSW degree, as Charles mentioned, and she was a former social work professor at Cal State, and I believe it was Cal State Sacramento. But considering her background and her belief system, and being part of like the Democratic Party and prioritizing public welfare, these are major indicators that this bill upholds liberal ideological values. Next slide. Okay, and then this question is, so how are diversity, equity, inclusion, cultural understanding, self-determination and empowerment, and commitment to social justice and the equal distribution of resources addressed or upheld by the proposed bill? So these values were not necessarily addressed in the bill, but they are upheld in the bill by its objective, which is to protect the social worker title to ensure that the public receives effective and adequate assistance, support, and guidance from academically qualified social workers, and because it's to maintain the credibility of the social work profession and the integrity of the NASW Code of Ethics. So by protecting the social worker title, it's basically ensuring that all of these values are also protected, right, to ensure that the integrity of the social work profession is maintained. And then also, so the value of inclusion is emphasized in the bill. It's not directly stated, but the bill does focus overall on establishing an outcome that centers around fairness and equity for individuals who possess the social work academic qualifications, while excluding individuals who do not have the academic qualifications. So it's basically promoting fairness to those individuals who have completed their education and have obtained their degree, have gotten their field experience, the proper and adequate training. So they're able to be placed into that category as being able to present themselves as social workers, and excluding the individuals that don't have their education. But from my understanding, it's not saying that the individuals who are excluded don't ever get to be called or be presented as social workers. They just have to undergo the same steps that the other individuals have gone through to get their degree. So it's promoting overall fairness to the individuals who have completed their education. Next slide.
Okay. So I will be presenting. My name is Anna Chowdy on the outcome of the bill. So I will go through the life of the bill, which I think Charles briefly touched on. But SB 766 was introduced on February 17th, 2023. From there, it was sent to the Office of State Printing. So once a bill is sent to the Office of State Printing, 30 days must pass from the day it was introduced before the bill can be acted upon. From there, the bill goes to the Rules Committee of the House of Origin, where it's assigned to the appropriate policy committee for its first hearing. Bills are typically assigned to policy committees based on the subject area of the bill. So SB 766 was referred to the Committee on Rules, and that was on March 1st, 2023. On March 20th, 2023, it was read a second time, it was amended, and re-referred to the Committee on Rules. On March 29th, the bill was re-referred to the Committee on Business, Professions, and Consumer Protection and Committee on Education. The bill was then to be heard in the Senate's Business and Professions Committee, and that was in April of 2023. On April 24th, 2023, the bill was voted on, and it passed with 13 yes and 0 no. The bill was then sent to the Senate Appropriations on May 8th, and a hearing on the bill led to the bill being placed on the Committee on Appropriations suspense file. At a subsequent hearing on May 18th, 2023, the bill was held in the committee and under submission. What that means is that when a bill is held under submission, it refers to an action taken by a committee when a bill is heard and there's an indication that the author and the committee members want to work on or discuss the bill further. So essentially, held in committee means that the bill will not move to the floor and it's dead for the year. SB 766 has been designated as a 2-year bill by the Senate Appropriations Committee, which means that the bill has an extra year to pass the legislature before it goes to the governor for signature. The bill was returned to the Secretary of Senate pursuant Joint Rule 56 on February 1st, 2024. So that was this year. And according to the joint rules of the Senate, Joint Rule 56, bills introduced in the first year of the regular session and passed by the House of Origin on or before January 31st are carryover bills. And immediately after January 31st, bills introduced in the first year of the regular session that do not become carryover bills shall be returned to the Chief Clerk of the Assembly or Secretary of the Senate. And as we see here on February 1st, it was returned to the Secretary of the Senate. So basically, the bill has not passed, and the fight for the bill to pass continues.
I think that concludes our presentation. Great job, everybody.
Yeah, great job. Great job.
Stop recording.